Welcome to our first creative studio chat. Fleur and I have been doing Instagram lives for 10 months now, almost a year, which feels crazy because this was like an idea Fleur had that was like, hey, do you want to start jumping on lives? And they have been so wonderful. Would you not agree, Fleur? I
Uh,
look forward to our conversations every month.
yeah, and you and I can just chat for ages. So sometimes we've got to keep an eye on the time.
I know. So these are going to be just the same format. Casual. We're going to be talking about topics that are on our mind lately. As creatives, what we're talking about in our conversations offline, that sort of thing. We're going to try our best to keep it to like 10 to 15 minutes. But the reason that we wanted to offer them in this format was we wanted to be able to put these all in a place for you guys that you could easily access and reference in the future. And also, we don't own Instagram. And I think when Instagram went down for so many users the other week, or when we see other creatives getting hacked, we just feel a little better having some of these videos or these conversations in a place that we control. So that gives you a little bit of heads up on what Studio Chats is about. And our topic for today is storytelling.
Yeah, really excited to talk about this because I know a lot of you believe we have to have like this kind of like big kind of story behind our work. And we're here today to relieve you of that. It doesn't. Like you can actually create beautiful designs if you want to create beautiful designs, and you don't have to have a big story and kind of like narrative going behind the work.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I like 90% of my collections, if they ever had a story, the story was written after the collection was created. Like in because I needed it. I needed it for whatever, like to promote it online. I wanted to tell a little story or something, but very rarely do I start with a story. Do you ever start with a story?
Sometimes I'm inspired by something and I'm like, oh, that's got quite a nice story to it, and then it gives me the story gives me the inspiration. So like sometimes yes, but most of the time I'm like, okay, I want to design this floral and I've got an idea for it, and I design the floral. It's come from nowhere, but maybe some photos on a walk, like something that I've been inspired by. Like I've seen some flowers, I've taken photos of them, and then I really want to draw them, and so that's the only story I have. And maybe sometimes they remind me of my daughter, or my daughter really liked them on our walk and she told me to take photos of them, but there's not really much of a narrative there. I just really want to create, and I think we can get stuck in this. We can kind of like lose momentum when we always think, oh, I've got to start with the story and these ideas and these big ideas, like I've got to have these big aha moments, and we don't. We can actually just create, and we don't even need to come up with a story afterwards. If you want to, go right ahead. But there are some people that come up with beautiful stories and have this beautiful idea behind their work and everything. And I love it. And I find it really inspiring as well. But we don't have to. So we wanted to kind of demystify that for you and clarify that you can create just from the pure inspiration and like kind of beauty of what you want to see in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also had, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but where I have had a story and then I start creating the collection and the story falls apart with the collection. And it almost feels like having the story is making me like force a certain direction. Does that make sense? Where in the middle of the process, I've had to just scrap the story and be like, well, I just like this one print. I want the one print and I want to build off of this. And it has nothing to do with that story or that vision that I originally had for the collection. And I think it's important to be able to let go of it too. Do you know what I mean? Like if you had a vision and it's not working, or you had a story and it's not working, to be able to just let go of it and say, it's okay that this is going a different direction. I can revisit that story at a different time.
Yeah, and there's also like stories can come in many forms. So like stories can come in like, are you telling a story to like your like, your kind of like ideal customer, like your avatar kind of thing? Like, are you creating kind of a vision for them? Like you're creating a kind of like a vision for that person? Or is it a story from something from your childhood or something? I feel like if you're really stuck in what to create, then coming from that space can be really, really helpful creating around a story. Like if you just don't know where to start, that can be really, really helpful part of the process. But if you're just someone that just wants to create beautiful things, you've got an idea, then just do it. Don't let the storytelling part stop you and hinder your like kind of art practice and your momentum. Because if you've got momentum and you want to put pen to paper, just put the pen to paper. Don't worry about what's to come and like how you're going to package it, because you don't have to package it if you don't want to. You can just put your art out in the world and see who likes it.
Yeah, I think that can be as simple as like you don't have to name an art print. You don't have to name every print if unless you want to, right? Like in order to put your artwork out to pitch it or to send it out to the world, it doesn't even have to have a name. It's probably best practice to name
Yeah.
all of your pieces and have it. But if that feels like so hard, which I know I've talked to other creatives who that part is naming it and naming the colors and just that whole part of it is a barrier. Take the pressure of that off. You know, you can always name it if a company asks you for a name at that point. But if it's stressing you out or holding you back from sending your artwork out, free yourself of it.
You
It's
could
not
just,
a necessity.
I name all my patterns, but only because I just like, I don't overthink that process. I just go, okay, what does it look like? Okay, it looks like a meadow. Okay, floating meadow. Or I'm like flowers in a meadow. Or, you know, if it's about love, I'm like hearts flutter. You know, like I don't know. And I just make up stuff really quick and I'm like, that's it. Or I just came up with an idea is that you could actually just number, like use a number system, and that could be easy. It's just the name helps me like remember it, and so then I can kind of like search for it easier. But the naming part can be really hard at times, so don't even stress about, like, just leave it.
Yeah, and I'm such a big proponent of like if it's stressing you out or it's taking hour or time and you haven't sold the art or it hasn't done it, free yourself of it, right? You can name it when you sell it. You can name it if somebody picks it up if they need you to name it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This,
But I will
oh,
go
you
ahead.
go. You go.
I
Yeah.
was going to say, I'm not the biggest storyteller when it comes to necessarily an overarching story of my collection. Some I do when I feel inspired, but I do believe in the power of storytelling as a brand and as a person connecting with other people in this space. Would you agree with that about the
Yeah.
importance of that, of being able to articulate who you are or what you're creating? Because that's how we build connections. It's at the core of building connections and community. And if that is something that you're striving to build, is a brand or a community or a name for yourself, I think it is important to tell stories in that sense.
Yeah, I think this is more important than having a story behind a collection. So like, yeah, so I feel like if you're going to like stress, like kind of like put an importance on a story, it's the storytelling of your brand. And like, you know, not that I'm saying that everyone needs to have a style, like an artistic style, because there are some artists that are really, really successful from jumping across many styles and just putting kind of one-off pieces out there and jumping on trends and doing lots of different styles, and they can make a lot of money doing that. But then where I've kind of think I've had success is kind of like focusing on the brand and my brand story of like what kind of things am I putting out in the world, so they are kind of cohesive, and that kind of packaging it in a way of like just the story across the whole thing. So when people go to my website and then my Instagram and then maybe my email, they kind of all kind of sync together and give a reflection of what Houghton Studio is about as a whole. I'm not doing kind of different things in different places, and I'm kind of keeping the same kind of color theme through as well. It can be it's a kind of a tricky thing to do sometimes when you don't know where to start or what to do.
I think that is one of the things that you are so good at is visual storytelling. Fleur has like nailed it. You can go to our page and there is a visual story. Like at first glance, I know just who you are. Like I know, and exactly what she says. She carries it across. It's not just on her Instagram, it's on her website, it's in her sell sheets, it's in her emails, it's in all of it. And she tells this beautiful visual story. And I tend to be more of a person that like, I always joke it's like the ADD in me that like likes to do a little this, a little that, a little this, and like, but I love to tell my story through words. And I think I tend to tell my story more through sharing experiences and sharing thought processes and more of the experimental side of it. And so we have two very different storytelling um,
You're
methods, I think, but they work for both of us for different reasons. Like I could never try to tell the stories that Flora is telling. Like that, I don't have the self control to do that like so beautifully like she does. And you're so great at it, and you've also figured out how to continue to evolve within that visual story. Like you don't ever, I watch you change colors, but it's still visually like you're just very intentional about how you do it and the growth and I don't ever get the sense from you that you feel confined to a box of your
yeah.
story that you're telling, and I think you do that very, very well.
Oh, thanks. I actually really enjoy it. It's like a puzzle to me. And my whole life I've loved puzzles, and I kind of look at it like a puzzle. I don't get stressed out about it. I don't kind of be like, I just kind of like weave things in and gradually move into and morph into like the next thing. So like I don't, yeah, like you say, like I'm like, okay, well, if I want to add this color, how do I kind of like add it smoothly and kind of move into that color, and then move out of it, because sometimes colors come and colors go. And so how I kind of do that, I do it like that. But I must say that that's why I love working with you, because you love words and I hate words. And I'm a visual person. And so we work really well because you do lovely words and stuff. But when I look at your Instagram, you still tell a really good story too. You still know clear of who you are. And it all still has a real cohesive kind of feel to it of who you are, and your handwriting. Your handwriting is still there. So you still shine through that.
We froze for a minute, but I feel like it's very on ground for us if you came to any of our Instagram lives. This is just like part of the deal. But I think what we're both kind of getting at is storytelling is important, but maybe not in the creating our artwork. We don't rely heavily on having a story when we create collections.
Yeah, like sometimes I do. I just did that little woodlands creation. I just kind of like, I think there's no rules. And if you don't want a story, or if you're not inspired for starting with a story, then don't stress about it. And that's just what we want to get across today, is that don't make it a barrier. And at the end of it, and you're like, wow, I actually feel like there's a story here, then tell that story. Like then that's just a bonus. I feel like it's a bonus, don't you? Like it's a bonus if it has a story. If it doesn't, you don't need it. So many artists, so many art directors would rather you be creating new work and more work, and so that there's more work to see, than you sitting down and telling a big story behind it. Wouldn't you agree? They just need,
I couldn't
they just
agree
need
more.
you out
And
there.
I think the one,
Yeah.
yeah, too. And I think I think the other thing I hope people take away from this conversation is like, however you tell a story, whether it's visual or through words or however it is, lean into what feels easy and good for you, right?
Yeah.
Like create in the way that feels right.
Yeah, and I always say this, but like if you're creating from joy, you're going to really enjoy it, and it's going to remind you why you're doing this for a career. So lean into like where you have joy, like get the paints out again. I don't know, like do what makes you happy, and that's when you're going to create a beautiful brand story, and just do the things that make you happy and don't stress about all of the other stuff. Like I just really enjoy doing my puzzle of my Instagram and I look at it like a puzzle, and so I just enjoy it. So if it brings me joy, I do it. Sometimes I have big breaks from Instagram, but most of the time I really enjoy piecing it all together. So if it doesn't bring you joy, that side of it, then don't stress about it.
So I think the key takeaways from this whole conversation, if we were to wrap it up, is that there are no rules. If you want to tell a story, whether it's about your collection or about your brand. But I think also lean into what feels good in the way that you naturally tell stories, because that will allow you to consistently show up and do it, right?
Yeah, I feel like just because I have a curated feed doesn't mean you have to. That's something that brings me joy. And so if it doesn't bring you joy to do that, then don't focus on that. Focus on what brings you joy, and that will really shine through anyway, like when you're enjoying what you are doing. So I try to say that to everyone, is like, I do things from places of joy and happiness. Otherwise I try not to do that.
We're at 20 minutes, which is like typical of Flora and I. We could talk about this for forever. So we're going to wrap it up. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you take a screenshot and share it on social media. You can tag me at Charlie Rowan Designs. You can tag Floor at Houghton Studios or the Creative Studio Collective. But it's extremely beneficial to know if you guys enjoy these conversations. And if you ever have a topic that you want us to talk on, let us know as well. And we will be back next month with another conversation.
Yeah, we're excited to kind of try out this new space. We will still do a few lives over on Instagram as well, but I feel like sometimes this is just easier to pre-record stuff and then send it to you guys, and yeah, have a new space to keep these all like a little library for you to come and you could just watch them all at once. Anyway, let's say goodbye, and we'll see you next time. See ya.